Hi everyone. Today we're going to actually learn about Punnett squares. So hopefully you're well on your way to finishing your baby assignment. And then that's due tomorrow, right? And then today we're going to today I should say. And today we're going to go through Punnett squares. So before we start that, there's some terminology that wasn't on your sheet that you need to add in. So add this in. So the first term here is homozygous dominant. So if something is homozygous, so if we break this up, homo, that prefix means same. So homozygous means they've got, and dominant means that someone or a organism contains two dominant alleles for a trait. So that would be two capital letters. So for example, T. Homozygous, again, homo means same, so the same zygous. Recessive, they're going to contain two recessive alleles, so this would be two lowercase letters here. So homozygous dominant is two capital letters, or two dominant traits, two dominant alleles for a trait. Homozygous recessive, we've got two lowercase letters, or two recessive alleles for a trait. And then we have something called heterozygous. Heterozygous, so the prefix hetero there means different. And this means it's going to contain one dominant and one recessive allele. So one dominant being capital, one recessive allele. And just as a review, when we're talking about a dominant trait, that's the stronger trait. So it's the one that's going to take over. So if I asked you, like, which two species would have, or which out of these three choices here, homozygous dominant, recessive, and heterozygous, which ones would have the same phenotype? So the same phenotype, which means they look the same, are going to be, use different color, no, let's use orange, are going to be this one and this one. Those will have the same phenotype, whereas this one's going to have a different phenotype. It's going to look different. So even though the genotypes of this one and this one, so the homozygous dominant and the heterozygous, the genotypes are different, the phenotypes are going to be the same. It's a little confusing, but you'll get the hang of it as we move forward here. Okay, so make sure you've got those three definitions down and are able to give examples. Now, creating a Punnett square. So a Punnett square is just a device that we use, or a strategy that we use to predict the genetics of offspring, okay? So it's kind of just like a mathematic way of looking at it. So to create a Punnett square, the first thing you need to do is find the genotypes of the parents. So you need to know whether they are dominant or recessive. So let's just say, we're just going to work through an example here. Let's say the mother is, I'm going to use B's, capital B and lowercase b. So this would be called heterozygous. Let's say the father is, oh, hold on. I want to erase that one. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Mother, again, what did I say? Capital B, lower. Let's say the father, homozygous recessive, okay? So that's the one we're going to look at here. So this would always be given to you, or would indicate somehow what it is. Your first step is going to be to make a 2x2 box. So you're going to make a box like this. Okay, so a 2x2 box. Next. Now, I'm going to recopy my box here. Okay, now again, we said the mother was this, the father is this. Okay, now, next step, you're going to put the genotype of one parent across the top. Okay, so I'm just going to put this one then across the top. So the mother has two alleles, so she is going to pass on either a dominant allele or a recessive allele. Now, put the genotype of the other parent on the left side. So now I'm going to do this one here. Now, the father only has two recessive alleles, so it has to be a recessive allele here. So the mother's going to pass either a dominant characteristic or a recessive allele. The father can only pass a recessive allele. There's no option for the dominant there. Now, next you're going to fill in the boxes. So 2 letters in each box. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this letter and bring it down. You're going to take this one and here. So I just cross those. It's kind of like a multiplication table. You know how they have those big multiplication tables and you just put your fingers, one on each, one at the top, one on the side, and you can move them together to find what you're looking for. It's the same thing here. So in this square here, right here, we've got from the mother, we've got the lowercase b, or the recessive allele, and the father, also the recessive allele. Next, I'm going to look over in this square here. Again, capital B from the mother, the father, lowercase, or recessive. And in the final box here, I've got recessive, recessive. So now I have crossed them. Now, so we get 1 allele from each parent, right, for this. Now, next step, you're going to write the genotypes and the phenotypes of the offspring being the children. So let's do that here. So genotypes. So the genotypes, how many choices do we have? What do you see for the different genotypes? Whoops. Yeah, so for genotypes, we've got 2 different types, right? We've got these ones. So you can either have heterozygous, and then here you would indicate it as a fraction or a percentage. It's your choice. So you could say 2 out of 4, or you could say 50%. Either one is acceptable. Now the other option that you have, is this one here. And in this one, this is homozygous recessive. And again, 2 out of 4 of the choices are that, and that's 50%. So what that means, 50% of the time you're going to get this one, the homozygous recessive, the lowercase, or the recessive alleles. 50% of the time you're going to get a dominant recessive heterozygous scenario here. Next, you're going to talk about the phenotypes. So this would be the genotypes here. Phenotypes, we also list these as a percentage. And so in this case, I never actually indicated what they were. So 50% are going to be this one. 50% are going to be that one. And you know what? I should have given you a specific characteristic, but we'll go through that in our next example here. So just pause on that phenotypes one for now. Okay, so we're going to work through an example. So you have this example in your notes already. So a tall plant, capital T, is crossed with a short plant, lower t, lowercase t. Draw a Punnett square and determine the genotypes and phenotypes. Okay, so first step, draw your box here. Now you're going to put one parent across the top. So capital across the top, short plant, the other one across the side. Now, we know that tall is dominant to short, okay? So the capital T is the dominant gene, and that's tall. The lowercase t is the short allele. So now we can go ahead and cross them. So we've got capital, lower, capital, lower, capital, lower, capital, lower. And so now we can write our genotypes and our phenotypes. So genotypes, if we look here, now when we look at this, we should notice that all of them are the same, right? So for our genotypes, we're going to have 4 out of 4, or we could say 100% are capital T, lowercase t, or dominant recessive, or heterozygous. Those things all mean the same things. Now we go through and we go these plants all have a tall allele and a short allele. So 4 out of 4 are the same. So they all have this heterozygous genotype here. But when they've got a tall allele and a short allele, that does not mean they would be a medium height. Okay, we tend to think that, but that's not how this works. The dominant allele in this case is going to take priority. It's going to be the stronger allele. So phenotypes here. Oh, I'm going to switch my marker. We can say 4 out of 4 or 100% are going to be, and the dominant allele wins, so they are going to be tall. So all of them are going to be tall. And then you're done. So that's what this question is asking. You've answered everything that was required of you. Okay, next. Red flowers are dominant over pink flowers. So the dominant allele is red, pink is recessive. So a red flower is that's heterozygous here is crossed with another red flower that is also heterozygous. What are the genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring? First step, draw your Punnett square. Okay, so red flower at the top, capital lowercase, on the side, capital lower, and now we just fill in the squares. This one here is going to be capital, capital, capital lower, capital lower, lower, lower. So this is our Punnett square here. I've done the crosses here. And so now I'm going to fill in my genotypes and my phenotypes. Okay, so genotypes. Now, if I look, let's just circle the ones that are the same. So this one's by itself. Let's use different colors, mainly because I like using this. This one's by itself. And lastly, those two are the same. So let's write down our genotypes here. So I can list them. So I can say 1 out of 4 or 25% are capital R, capital R. 1 out of 4 or 25% are lowercase, lowercase. So once I've done them, I can cross them off just so I don't get confused. And then 2 out of 4 or 50% are going to be your heterozygous, so the capital lower. So those would be the genotypes. Now, phenotypes. Now I have to look through and figure out what color they're going to be. These ones here, so I'm just going to switch markers. So looking at this one here, what color are those ones going to be? Yeah, they're going to be red. What about the lowercase, lowercase? That's the recessive allele. Yeah, those ones are going to be pink. And then the capital lower, those ones are also going to be red. So looking at this information, as well as the percentages here, what percentage are going to be red? Yeah, so I'm going to take the 50% plus the 25%, or I could take 2/4 plus 1/4. So it's going to be 3 out of 4, or 75% are red, and 1 out of 4 or 25% are pink. So again, phenotype is what they look like, genotypes are what their genes say. Okay, so this is how you would answer this question. Okay, example 3. Brown eyes are dominant to blue eyes in humans. They actually say that eventually blue eyes won't really exist anymore in the human race as generations. I mean, this is way in the future in terms of generations, because blue eyes are a recessive gene. So eventually they'll just kind of get bred out because the brown eyes will take over. I've always been very jealous of people who have brown eyes. I love brown eyes. What would be the possible genotypes for a person with brown eyes? So we're just going to use the letter B again for this. So brown is the dominant, so that's going to be the capital. Blue is going to be the lowercase because it's the recessive gene. So what would be the possible genotypes for a person with brown eyes? Well, the two different choices, they could be homozygous dominant, because those people would have brown eyes, or they could be this one, because if you're heterozygous, this B here is dominant, so it's going to win over the blue eye allele here. So those are the two choices here. Now, what about someone with blue eyes? Someone with blue eyes has to have what genotype? Remember that blue eyes is a recessive trait. So they're going to be lowercase there. So they would be homozygous recessive, and that's the only option for them then. Now, part B here, a person with brown eyes and they're homozygous dominant is crossed with a person who has blue eyes. Now, it doesn't give you the genotype, but we know from here that if they've got blue eyes, that has to be their genotype. So what is the possibility that they will have a child with blue eyes? So to figure this out, we're going to draw our Punnett square. Okay, so put the homozygous dominant person on top, blue eyes, homozygous recessive, and now we just do the cross. And from this, we realize what is the possibility that they have a child with blue eyes? If I look at this, are any of these people blue-eyed? If I look here, these are all the same, so I have 4 out of 4 are heterozygous, so 4 out of 4 have brown eyes, which means what is the possibility that they'll have a child with blue eyes? 0%. They cannot have a child with blue eyes. So genetically, that would not be possible. Okay, so that's that. Now, sometimes you have to sort of get the hang of these, so go through these examples more than once to help you. There's a Punnett square practice problem, so if you went to the school and picked it up, and I was there the other day and I saw that about 5 of the booklets are gone, so hopefully some of you have gotten those already. That practice problem worksheet is in there. I'll also post it on the website here. I want you to do all of these. It's quite a bit of questions. So like I said, today's Wednesday, so I'm not going to teach you a new lesson Thursday. I'll wait till Friday for that. But please get this done, and then we'll move on to our next topic. Okay, thanks, guys.